So, as a very famous writer, Ernest Hemingway, once said, the first draft of everything is shit. He couldn't have been more right about that. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Esmie Pearson. I'm the Sunday Times Bestselling fantasy author of The Principle of Moments, which is a space fantasy book that came out in January. And this is my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to jump on really quickly and talk about finishing first drafts, just because I have officially finished the first draft of my most recent manuscript. I haven't posted many videos on here about it just because I drafted it in a really short amount of time. It all happened within 4 months and it was basically just me sitting down at the keyboard every single day and banging this draft out. It was mentally, emotionally and spiritually grueling, but also really fun, and it taught me so much about my process as a writer, about how to get to the end of that first draft when it literally seems like it couldn't be further away. And so I just felt very impassioned to come on here and tell you guys how I kind of reached the end of that draft. It's the third fully finished draft of a manuscript I've written. I've also finished a draft to the point where it was published into a book, traditionally published, so I've been through all the editing rounds. I'm definitely still at the beginning of my career, but I have now finished a couple of drafts and I feel qualified to speak on what helps me alone. Anyway, I'm really excited to do this video. Let's crack on. So I think the first thing we need to address when you're trying to finish a first draft is your mindset. Before anything else, before practical tips, which are definitely coming later, we need to get into the mindset of this whole writing thing because it's difficult, it really is. So, as Ernest Hemingway once said, the first draft of everything is shit. He couldn't have been more right about that. The draft that I just sent in to my agent, oh, diabolical. I'm so pleased that it will never be making print because honestly, it's not good enough, but it's a first draft, so who cares? I sent her in the document and literally saw about 12 typos, a sentence that finished with the words, then she, and I thought, this was after I sent it, I was like scrolling through and I thought, do you know what, I've made my peace. Because who is the real winner, right? The author who finished a draft, sent it to their agent, sold that draft to an editor, turned that draft into a full published book one day, or the writer who sits at home with a perfect manuscript on their laptop but is never disciplined enough to get to the end of the first draft, never brave enough to send it out to anybody, never brave enough to be rejected. Who's the real winner, I ask you? I know what I would pick. Anyway, so yes, just know that it's going to be bad, know that the first draft is going to be shit, and don't let that stop you. Your dreams are on the other side of typing the end on that manuscript. It might not be the book that you finally sell in a huge deal, but it's the first book you ever wrote. And if you never ever finish that first draft, the chances of you, hitting the New York Times bestseller list one day, having a film made out of your book, becoming somebody who writes full time, those things will never happen unless you type the end on a full manuscript. So just remember that your dreams are on the other side of the end. Bringing me to my next point, I heard somebody say recently, and it really resonated with me, the most important promises to keep are the ones you make to yourself. I feel like I'm just spouting a lot of quotes, but that pierced my soul. If you're keeping promises to everybody else but not yourself, what kind of a life is that? I mean, it's a life where you're very helpful to other people, but I mean, sometimes I think that's overrated. And if you can't live a life where you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I did what I set out to do, I kept my promises to myself, then, And while we're on the subject of other people and helping other people, stop worrying about what they think. I made another video about this. It's my how to stop overthinking video. Just something that I told myself because I was like, oh my gosh, everybody who loved this space vibe of The Principle of Moments, are they gonna be down for fantasy? Which university? Because those are two different vibes. Space opera versus dark academia. Those are two very different books. But you know what? It's what I felt compelled to write. It was an idea that I loved enough that I would see it through to the end and type the end. So I had to silence those voices. I mean, I even had quite a lot of emotional turmoil recently because I had to leave the agent who sold The Principle of Moments. And I was like, is any other agent gonna like the rest of my work? It's kind of like a relationship. You're like, no one's ever gonna love me again. They are. They are. But yeah, I had all of that going through my mind and it was quite scary. Just thinking like, is this actually going to go anywhere? Is anybody actually going to like this book? But I had to quiet those voices and get on with it. And I had to remember the motto of this channel, which is just don't stop, just don't quit, just keep going. So I did, and I finished it. Now that we've got all of that mindset stuff out of the way, I do have some practical tips that I'd like to share with you guys that really help me when I'm like stuck in a rut with writing and I can't seem to figure out what is even going on with my characters. So these are the practical tips for helping you get to the end of that first draft. One thing I think helps is giving your characters an ultimate goal. So this is slightly different to giving your characters a goal or something that they really want, but this is you sitting down and visualizing ultimately what is it that they want to achieve? What is it? What is that moment? You can even visualize it as a sort of scene. In fact, I would encourage you to sort of plot out. You know, I know we get a bit scared about plotting. I was scared too until recently. Plot out just a little bit. What does the moment look like when they finally get that goal? Maybe it's not even at the end of the book that you're writing. Maybe it's a trilogy and it happens towards the end of the third book. But if you can give yourself something to write towards, then you give yourself agency and your characters will develop agency as a result, which gives them something to run all the way towards through that plot, the ups and downs. It gives them something to skirt around the obstacles, which is a little bit of plot in itself. What is the ultimate goal? What is the moment that they're working towards? Once you know that, you can write towards it. While we're on the topic of agency, I think it's really important discussion to think about your characters very deeply and why are they doing the things that they're doing? Ask yourself that. Are they doing these things because you've decided that they need to do them to further the plot? Are you moving your characters around on a game board like they don't have agency of their own? Or are your characters reacting to the things that you've put in their past? Are your characters reaping the consequences perhaps of their own actions? I know that the most tumultuous things that happen in my life happen as a consequences of my own direct actions, so maybe you can lend a bit of that chaos to your characters and have them make mistakes, fall out with people, mess up on the way to achieving their goals so that they have to fix things. They gain agency by wanting to get towards that goal that they have. I think people can often stall in the writing process when their characters are doing things just because it says so in the plotting document that I made, or just because they're doing it because I wanted a scene where two characters have to share a bed. Sorry, it's not good enough. Yes, you can have that in the back of your mind, but why is it particularly interesting for those two characters to be sharing a bed? What is the chain of events that led them to this point, and what is going to be the fallout from it? Those are the kind of questions you've got to be answering. I will take no slander on the one bed trope, by the way. I absolutely love that trope when it's done well and for a reason. Also, you must give your story some stakes. We need some meat to dig into. People often describe stakes as the thing that the reader is invested in for them to care about the story. But right now, forget the reader. We need you to care. We need you to care enough to finish this manuscript. So what is going to happen to this character, to these worlds, or this world that makes you care enough to finish the book? For me, the world was going to end. Hundreds of planets gone and done. And I was like, that's actually kind of sad. Like, we really need a hero to come and save that. And that was the motivation that I gave myself to finish the book, because I was like, really curious to see how it was all going to end, and I wanted my main character to have been on such a journey that it makes total sense for her to be the one to save the 100 worlds in the novel, and that process intrigued me enough to want to finish it. How does the girl without any power or any agency in her own life transform over the course of the novel to become one of the most powerful people in the galaxy, capable of standing up to the Emperor and freeing people from his tyranny? How does that happen? It doesn't have to be stakes as big as the world ends or the galaxy implodes. It can literally be this character might fall out with their best friend or might not get into university. It can be really small stakes as well. But if you care enough about the character and your characters have enough agency, that should be enough to keep you interested in finishing the book, because you want to see where everything ends up. So remember that the first reader of your work is yourself, and you should be interested in what you're writing. Forget the voices in your head, these imaginary perceived readers. What matters when you're trying to finish the first draft is you. Are you interested? Do you care? That's what you have to think about. Now, my last point is kind of flipping the stakes advice on its head. What do your characters have to lose? This is another good way of thinking about stakes. What do they have to lose? If they don't achieve this thing that you've given them as a goal, or that they really want as a goal, what's going to happen to them? Are their parents gonna die? That's quite extreme, but you know, are they not going to get into this dream school? How would that emotionally devastate them? Perhaps multiple times during the draft, you can have them reflect on what is going to happen if they don't achieve these stakes. And it might give you a little burst of motivation as well, because that would be very sad if they didn't get their dream. Another thing that's a little bit sadistic, a little bit naughty, what are you gonna take from them? What are you gonna take from your characters over the course of the novel to make them into the person they are by the end of the book? I know there are a lot of sick people out there, myself included, who love to write sobbing over the dead body, sobbing over my pile of broken dreams. So give your character the chance to experience that. Well, give yourself the chance to experience writing something like that. Take something away from them. Take something big, and don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't kill the hamster. Someone, and you never know what might happen. That was slightly chaotic. If you have any questions, please let me know. I love talking about the process of writing and the craft of writing. It has been a joy and a pleasure as always. I want to update you guys more about this draft that I finished, because I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It's like which university, and we'll see. My agent's got the draft right now. We'll see if she likes it. Please cross your fingers for me, because this is the one I need to go clear. I need to actually change my life with this book. Stick around if you want to see that journey. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks as always for subscribing to my YouTube. I cannot believe I'm nearly at 5,000 subscribers. That's crazy to me. If you haven't, buy my book so that I can put food on the table for my family, i.e. me. Bye, and see you next time. I don't actually have a family. Well, I do, just not like my family. Anyway, bye. See you guys later. Mwah, much love. Happy writing.